So at this point, you're probably saying, well, that's great, David. You just painted a picture, which is, it's just so smooth and so easy. Surely there are blocks here. And yes, of course, there are. So let me just examine some of the blocks here. The first one is secretaries and personal assistants. How many of you encounter difficulties with? Right, okay. Great, okay. So, well, not great, but maybe I can sort of cast some light on how to work with them. When I was doing this the hard way, conventional wisdom said that you have to get past the gatekeeper. Yeah? How do I get past the gatekeeper? So there's a sense, there's a kind of pushing and shoving. Yeah? And what's interesting about language, if we frame it in a certain way, is that it actually creates a block within us. So if you say gatekeeper to yourself, how do you feel? You feel there is a gate in front of you and you are trying to push through it. Yeah? And I got my knuckles severely wrapped by a managing director of a large motor company when I did exactly that. No, welcome. Welcome. And I'm sure you're familiar with some of these kind of cheap strategies that cold callers use. And one is to use the first name of the person you're calling. And the other one is to do things like say to the gatekeeper, this is confidential, it's about your competitor. And he called me straight back, and I got great, I got a fantastic result, and I really got my knuckles wrapped because he said, this is the most disrespectful thing you've done because my personal assistant is my trusted advisor and supporter, and if you're going to call again, then please treat her with respect and work with her. And at this point where I had put so much effort in trying to push past gatekeepers, I thought, that's interesting. So maybe if I respect and honor the world of the person that I'm trying to deal with, then maybe I'll get a much better result. So what I did was I renamed gatekeepers to gate openers. I'll say that again. I reframed gatekeepers to gate openers. And what that does is that your feeling is the sense that you're going to speak to someone that's going to be supportive and not a block. And what I do is I say, you're the boss. I mean, not literally. I'm calling, here's my valid business reason, this is why I think I should speak to the decision maker. And I've also had a referral from the chief executive secretary. So I feel I have my passport, but it is up to you when you feel is a good time to let me in. And I'll leave it with you, it's entirely. And by doing that, and you'll know this, if you try and drag someone to your world, you have a lot of resistance and it's a lot of hard work. But if you meet someone in their world with their perspective, it's far easier to then shuffle them to your world, if that makes sense. Yeah? So I work with personal assistants. And to be honest with you, I do a huge amount of closing of meetings because I say to myself, well, I could go to the decision maker, but in actual fact, if I work well with the personal assistants or the secretary, why not let them do the work? Why not them find the time in the diary and then come back to me and tell me, rather than me constantly ringing and ringing and ringing. Yeah? And then what I found, and I don't know if this is your experience, is that once I built that good relationship, is that person becomes very supportive, particularly when you want to get your invoice paid. I find that they will be, so that's how good it can be. The second block, which I hear is a constant cry, is voicemail. How many of you struggle with voicemail? And before I actually go into talk about it, I'd just like to ask you, because this is a fascinating thing for me, is how many of you have listened to your own voicemail? Okay. Because I ran an open seminar once, and there was a lady from London Business School, and I was talking about voicemail. She put her hand up. She said, no. She said, it's unbelievable. She said, I didn't really listen to my voicemail. And I rang my office, expecting to get my secretary, and my voicemail kicked in. And she said, I was so bad-tempered. I sounded so terrible. And it's extraordinary because people leave voicemails when they're in a state of agitation or they're thinking about something, so that the message that comes across to the prospective customer or the person that's calling is, in the good old words of Shelley Rose Charvet, the customer is bothering me. So in other words, go away. I don't really want to be contacted. So how do I deal with voicemail? Well, voicemail, again, comes back to this perceptual positions idea, is that I step into the shoes of the person that I'm calling and ask myself, if I were them, what would make me return the call? Yeah. And how many times do you get voicemail which goes something like this? Hi, it's Peter Johnson here. I'm just calling about, call me back on 07744473112. How many of you get that? I mean, I had that last week. And I played back the call 6 times to try and get the number. And because I'd saved it, to go back to it, I got, of course, I had to retrieve the message, and it went, you have 12 saved messages. And I thought, I'm not going to go through 12 saved messages to try and play this another 6 times to get the number. So a very obvious point is that what I do is I present a reason about them and their world. And again, if I can slip in something which has something to do with an executive referral. So it goes something like this. It's David Festenstein here. I'm calling you about the XYZ initiative. Jennifer Johnson gave me your name and suggested speaking to you. Could you be so kind to call me back on 01923 663 275. And then I repeat the number really clearly, 01923 663 275, and this is the bit, the presupposition, and I look forward to hearing from you. So the suggestion is that they will return the call. Yeah. The third block is ourselves, is what sort of state we're in, what sort of energy level we're in when we make a call. Now, if we're nervous or in some way agitated, or we have a high level of worry about the outcome of the call, this will come across in your voice. Yeah? And this is why I encourage you to record your calls, because what you can begin to notice is when you're at your best, or have you got yourself into the right state of focus and energy before making the call? I mean, how many of you are morning people? Okay. So probably morning is a good time for you to make your calls. And how many of you are kind of night owls and up in the... Yeah. So you're going to have different rhythm energy levels, and that's going to be reflected in your voice. And as you probably know, is how you feel affects how you sound, which will affect the outcome. Does anybody know, just out of interest, the proportion of impact to content to delivery over the phone? So in other words, what the percentage is, and you probably know backwards the percentages in a... Sorry? Not quite, no, it's a bit higher than that. Yes, that's right. So it's 30 to 70. So the sound, the delivery, how you deliver your message can be up to 70%. I mean, that's staggering. That's not in any way to disregard the content, because of course content is very important. But if you play with that, what it means is that in terms of getting the outcome that you want, if you develop sensory acuity around what the tonal information that's coming back to you, and then adjust your own natural delivery style to meet the other person's world. So, for example, you can hear from my voice that I'm very slow and very deliberate. Those of you who are visual and processing pictures will probably get frustrated with me at times, going, come on, man, get on with it, say it. So when I'm talking to very visual people, I speed up. I have to speed up because I'm aware that that slow delivery will produce a mismatch and irritate the other person. Yeah? So delivery is key. And I would encourage you. How many of you, I mean, it's an interesting thing, how many of you find it difficult to communicate or to engage with certain types of people on the phone? Do you find there's certain individuals that you kind of feel, I just can't, yeah? So there's something there about how you adjust or modify your delivery style in order to engage with those different types of people. Yeah. And what you can do is inject more energy or slow your voice down. Rather like an actor, you can play with the texture of your voice in order to, if you like, what I call almost like to dance the tonal dance, if you like, because it's all around sound, isn't it? Yeah. And the interesting thing is that if you attune to the different changes in voice tone and you acknowledge that, so very often people say things, but their voice tone says something else. Yeah? You find that? So by acknowledging that, by saying, well, actually, you're saying that the deal's going to head, but I kind of sense there's a slight sort of doubt in your voice. Do you want to tell me a bit more about that? Well, actually, we're kind of struggling with the budget and and all that kind of stuff. So you can kind of draw out other information, which is very helpful. So how are we doing for time? Yeah, we're doing okay. What I'd like to ask you now is to kind of check in with you. Where are you with your score in making those calls, the calls that you were going to avoid? Has your score gone up? Yeah, okay. How much has it gone up? Very quiet. I've got you thinking, haven't I? Has it gone up 1 point? 2 points? Yeah. 3 points? Good. Okay. So there's been a change. Yeah. Okay. So I guess just to kind of wrap up some of this stuff, to give you a sense of just some examples, really. It's always good giving you lots of theory, really.